Even though it's against the law in the city, landlords in Los Angeles are turning rent-controlled units into short-term rentals. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's coming out of the great city of Los Angeles, California. Now, I talk about Los Angeles a lot because it is what you don't want to see when it comes to landlord-tenant laws, okay? The laws there are absolutely awful for landlords. They treat you like you don't even own the property. The city owns the property. They set what the rents are. They tell you who you have to rent to. They tell you who you can and cannot evict. Basically, they've taken away your property rights. And you know what? They have rent control in place for certain buildings within Los Angeles. And the owners of these properties, they can't make any money. But they found a way around it. Now, I don't condone not obeying the laws of the city that you're investing in. What I always say is follow the laws of the city that you're investing in. If you don't like those laws, invest somewhere else, because there's plenty of places throughout this country that don't have ridiculous anti-landlord laws. So, you know what? If your city says we have rent control, then you have to obey by that law. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself in all sorts of trouble. And I would never recommend anyone go around the law or try to break the law like the landlords in this article are doing. So basically, Los Angeles has a law that makes it illegal to make rent-controlled units into short-term rentals. But landlords are doing it anyway. And I understand why they're doing it. While I don't condone what they're doing, I understand why they're doing it. They cannot make money off of these units under the rent control policies. But they realize that they would rather deal with fines and the city coming after them as long as they could make the money. Okay, they can pay the fines if they make enough money. So yeah, these buildings, they're turning them profitable again, and they are just blatantly breaking the law. And that's what this article I'm going to read today is all about. So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like, subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below and let me know what you think. So let's say you're a landlord in Los Angeles, or maybe you really are a landlord in Los Angeles. Okay, would you turn a rent-controlled unit over into an Airbnb, even though you know it's against the law? I'm just curious what other landlords here would say. Now, you know what I'm going to say. I'm not going to invest in LA. But if you did, okay, would you go this route? And I say, maybe I would, okay? If this is the only way I can make this building profitable, if this is the only way that I can not go bankrupt and have the bank take my property, my credit destroyed, you know, yeah, I'll think about it for sure, okay? Excuse me. Anyway, let's get into the article and see what it says. Now, keep in mind when I go through this, they're looking at it from the perspective of, oh, well, these landlords are taking away affordable housing in the city, and they're, you know, like as though, you know, the tenants have a right to this housing, as though they own the property. That, well, you know, like I said earlier, right? The city, the tenants themselves, they believe that they own and control these properties, not the property owners. So let's get into the article. This article is coming from Los Angeles Public Press, and it says, in Los Angeles, your chic vacation rental may be a rent-controlled apartment. Amid an affordable housing crisis, rent-controlled buildings are listed on short-term rental websites. A 2018 law was supposed to stop that, but the city is struggling to enforce it. And that's how landlords are getting away with it, okay? The city is not enforcing this law that is on the books. And they have a lot of trouble in LA enforcing a lot of the laws that are on the books. You can put all the laws on paper you want, right? But unless there is a method of enforcement, the laws are pointless. So yeah, you start to see the problem with the overwhelming bureaucracy in a place like California, and specifically in LA. So anyway, let's get into the article and see what it says. The first complaint about illegal vacation rentals at 1940 Carmen Avenue, a rent-controlled apartment building just blocks from Hollywood Boulevard, arrived at the Los Angeles Housing Department nearly a decade ago. This place is crazy, a tenant reported in 2015, according to an inspector's note. Luggage up and down, different people always in and out, not safe. Inspectors cited the owner for changing the building's use without a permit. They warned him again the next year, but after that, housing inspectors appeared to drop the matter, even as they ordered the owner to correct other building code violations. A few years later, in 2020, a tenant complained that 14 of the 21 units were listed on Airbnb. yeah, don't be surprised that the landlord, as the tenants, naturally rolled over, they said, hey, I'm going to turn this unit that wasn't profitable before, getting below market rate rents over to an Airbnb, because this is a very popular area. Okay, so a lot of people from out of town, they want to stay in this area, and the landlord realized that. Okay, now they cited this landlord before. The landlord just paid that citation, because when you're making a significant amount of money, right, how much are they citing him? Okay, they're not citing him enough to deter the action. It's kind of like when you say, hey, we want to deter shoplifters from stealing from the store, so what are we going to do? We're going to cite and release them. Well, the shoplifter just tears up the citation and then goes right back into the store and steals some more. Well, in the case of the landlord might pay the citation, but they're just going to keep doing the same thing, because the citation is less than the amount of money they can make by breaking the rules. So, like I said, don't break the rules, but I understand why the landlords are doing this. LA zoning laws have long prohibited turning apartments into hotel rooms, with a few exceptions. But in 2018, the City Council handed inspectors a new enforcement tool, an ordinance that specifically outlawed using rent-controlled dwellings for short-term rentals. The Housing Department opened a case against 1940 Carmen, but referred it to the Planning Department, even though the Planning Department doesn't have the ability to fine or otherwise penalize violators. Planning Department officials said they found no evidence of short-term rentals. However, Booking.com recently listed one-bedroom units in the building for about $160 a night. Asked about short-term rentals, 1940 Carmen owner Alexander Stein said, "I would rather not discuss it. Thank you for calling, though," before hanging up. And so you got to wonder, why are these people so worried about this one specific building? Okay, because the people who are worried about this building, they are tenants who want cheap rent. Okay, they basically are, hey, I'm going to snitch on this guy, so maybe I can move in there and get super cheap rent-controlled unit. Like, yeah, that's not going to happen, okay? Like, even in the best world scenario, rent-control landlords, once they get a tenant in their unit, those tenants don't ever leave, So the chance, they're fought over, the tenants themselves will fight over those units, and then they don't ever want to leave. So, it's very unlikely that the people who are snitching would have accomplished anything with it, right? So they talk about this in terms of, hey, this isn't the only landlord doing it either, right? There's probably landlords all over the city doing it. In fact, I want to go further and say I've read similar articles about this very issue happening in New York City, another city with rent control, and another city where short-term rentals are banned. Well, the only difference in New York is it's not the landlords themselves always who are doing it. Sometimes it's the tenants, okay? The tenants who supposedly live in these rent-controlled units are subletting them out. So, yeah, I believe that's probably the case in Los Angeles as well, okay? Because the rents are kept artificially low and the tenant can make a substantial profit by putting it on Airbnb. So, yeah, I mean, this is an issue in a way, but the real issue, it isn't the actions of the landlord. It isn't the actions of the tenants doing the subletting. It is rent control. It is the government. Simply put, the government is creating this situation right here. Now, if the landlord had the ability to make a profit, if the developers had the ability to build new apartment units, then guess what? They wouldn't be forced to do this. There wouldn't be houses, they wouldn't be putting their units on Airbnb. They would just be renting them out like normal, and people would be, just churning through the units like a normal place, like everywhere else that doesn't have rent control. Instead, they created a situation where, we have entitled tenants over here, we have landlords who are, breaking the law, and it's pointless. It's absolutely pointless. And I hate reading about this because it's expected, okay? It's expected that, one, landlords are going to do whatever they can to try to make a profit. Two, tenants are going to be jealous because they didn't get their entitlement. And three, the government bureaucracy is the root cause of all of it. Okay, so anyway, I'm going to put a link to this article in the description down below. Let me know what you think. Like I said before, if you were a landlord in LA who had a rent controlled unit, would you rather put it on Airbnb or take market or rent controlled rents that basically keep you in poverty, where you're paying out of your pocket to subsidize your tenant's rent for as long as they want to stay there?